Welcome to Rock Solid, the Round Rock Business Leaders Podcast. Join your host, Bryan Eisenberg, as he explores the journeys of entrepreneurs and companies across Round Rock, Texas. From startups and nonprofits to large organizations, each guest shares their passion for doing business in this thriving community. Let's dive in.
Hi, everybody. It's Bryan Eisenberg. Welcome to Rock Solid. I'm here this week with Mary Parker from Infinite Potential Counseling. And I've got a whole bunch of directions I want to go with you, but I want to start with one that really caught my eye. I was going through like reviews for your business, and someone said that you're a unicorn of practices. Can you kind of give some background what that means?
So inside of the mental health space, it's very peculiar and unique to find a practitioner who's looking for root causes for mental health. And that's really our focus. We can have you on our couch for 20 years talking to you forever, but if we don't look at why, then you're literally going to be there for 20 years. And my goal is that most of our clients are out of our office in 6 months or less.
It's a better business model the other way around, though. I just got to tell you. Last night we were at our friend Ken Mensch, who's been a guest as well, right? And he loves to brag about, his clinic is, his average client lasts 2.3 visits, and that's it. I'm just like, it's great for the client. It's terrible for business. What made you decide that was going to be your priority from a business perspective?
So my son was injured, and we worked with a whole bunch of doctors, like every specialist you can possibly think of. We weren't getting anywhere. It wasn't until we began looking at why he was having all of the struggles that we actually saw progress, and his life improved, and then our lives improved. So I don't want people forever relying on me. I want to give people knowledge because then they can take it and they have improved lives.
Yeah, let's go into it a little bit because I know you were just at an event last night. You saw my good friend, Dr. Matt Delgado, and you both have something very similar to your practices. So he's a chiropractor down in South Austin, and his whole focus is he's not a traditional chiropractor, he's a neuro-based chiropractor, but he focuses on the lifestyle issues because if you're not taking care of those, you're no matter what he does in the office, yes, it's going to help. I guess kind of like counseling, but it's not going to get you the success you want, right? And so he'll focus in, like you do, right, on toxins, on food, on movement, medications. Why is that such a priority, and why do most parents like kind of miss that and they go the more traditional route of I'm going to go to such and such and get a prescription?
Well, we're not really informed that we have those things going on, right? And we assume as a population that if it's available in the grocery store or a doctor's telling us that it's okay, then it is. But the reality is many things that are sitting on our grocery store shelves are actually toxic. If you cannot pronounce the ingredient that is in your food, you should not be putting it in your body.
Well, and even some of the ones you can pronounce are things that you shouldn't be putting in your body.
When you pick up something and it says citric acid, well, you assume this is coming from fruit, but this is actually a black mold. And are we supposed to be ingesting mold? Absolutely not. Mold can cause some of the most toxic illnesses for human beings. So when we're working with a family, we start with genetics. We want to know what are the genetic influences that made us susceptible from the get-go. Because genes lay the foundation, but it is diet and environment that end up pulling the trigger as far as what presents for us.
Epigenetics.
So we want to make sure that we help the family to identify, like, what is your genetic blueprint and what do you need to be aware of for your child? And then it's not just me coming to you and saying, oh, I think we've got something to worry about. I have a report that says, no, we have a gene snip here that says that you are very sensitive to gluten or dairy, or you're not methylating, or whatever the situation is for the individual. And then we can help you create, kind of like your guidebook for the rest of your life, because it's your genetic blueprint.
Yeah, it's personalized for your care and for you getting what you need. Let's kind of go back into understanding, how you got into this, because you actually got into this fairly later in life for most people, right? I think you were in mid-30s when you started going back to school, or late 30s.
So it was late 20s, early 30s. My son was developing normally. He was, energetic and engaged and really, really just an exciting little baby. And we went in for his 18-month appointment, and I was already a little hesitant. It didn't make sense to me to inject 12 different viruses into anyone. None of us come in contact with that. So we only allowed one, and it was the DTaP vaccine. And he did not walk out of that appointment. We actually carried him out screaming, and he screamed for 3 days, and then seizures started. He lost the ability to walk. He lost the ability to talk. He went back to being essentially a brand new infant again. So because we went to so many doctors, like we were collecting them like Pokemon. We had every specialist you could think of. And we weren't getting anywhere. And it was just push another pill that caused another side effect. So I went back to school to figure out how do I fix this.
Again, a very good business model.
Yes.
Yes. Let's.
Rock Solid is produced and recorded at Round Rock Studio. Located right here in Round Rock, our state-of-the-art studio is built for podcasters and creatives alike. We offer multiple professionally designed podcast sets, top-notch recording gear, and a full photography studio ready for any project. Whether you're launching a new podcast or upgrading your existing one, we can help with multi-camera recording, editing, and everything you need for success. Record with us at Round Rock Studio, your local podcasting partner.
So I went back to school to figure out what exactly do I do for this kid, because by the age of 3, he had 7 different mental health diagnoses. And not one of them got to the root cause of he had a traumatic brain injury from the vaccine, and then he had also been shooken by a daycare provider. So we actually went back to root causes, detoxed him, did all of the things to get him clean, and healed the brain by doing a high-fat ketogenic diet. And he's fine. He's going to graduate from college.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, so that's coming up now.
Yep.
What was the biggest surprise to you when you first started down your counseling career, that when you look back at it now and knowing what you know now, that they totally missed?
They're absolutely missing the root cause aspect of it. Mental health is not actually its own illness. It's a symptom of something that's going wrong in the body, and they're not addressing it that way. They want to treat mental health like it's its own island, like the brain is just sitting here all by itself. But the reality is we are a very intertwined creature. And, everything we put into our body, whether we're putting it on our skin or into our stomach, it is impacting our brain health. So we have to take a look at the whole body. We have to do that, or we are going to be sick forever. And that's whether it's mental health or physical health.
Yeah, and by the way, it's the same thing with pain, gut issues. People think that they're isolated, and so they end up in the specialist shuffle. It sounds like you were chasing that. And until you go back to the fundamental lifestyle issues and just clean those up. I mean, I had a big transformation. What is it, almost 2 years ago? So I completely get it. What's the one thing that, if you had a parent now who's maybe dealing with a child who's rambunctious or can't pay attention or starting to get threats of having to get diagnosis, what's the one thing you really want them to know before they go down that journey?
I'll start with the food. Get rid of the processed food. Cut back on sugar, get rid of food dyes. We have 35 years of research that shows us that a ketogenic or carnivore diet is the most beneficial thing in reversing mental health symptomology.
And I have a friend in Arizona who has a nursing home, and he puts all the people come into the nursing home, same thing, on a ketogenic diet, on red light, all that. And his goal is to get them out of there in 6 months as well. Right? And it shouldn't become a warehouse for seniors. And obviously that's close to my heart as well.
Well, so when we have children, we are laying the foundation for brain health for the rest of their lives. So we actually want to make sure that they're eating a high healthy fat diet, because we're myelinating the entire brain. And if we don't feed the brain the fat that it needs, because it needs 2 things, it needs insulin and it needs fat. But fat is the one that has to do with brain signaling and all of our neurotransmitters. So we want to make sure that they have a high healthy fat, and this is not fried foods and potato chips. This is, we want steak, we want fatty fish, we want avocados, we want walnuts. Those are all things that are really great for our brain. So when we're working with kids, that's part of our education with parents, is we need to really take a look at their diet and what are we putting into their bodies.
When people search you out, your clients, because you have an office here in Round Rock. I know you just moved. What are they calling you worried about? Like why are they tracking you down?
So most of the people that are coming to our office, they either themselves or their child has been told that they probably have something like autism, anxiety, ADHD, depression, and people want to medicate them. And we've either got families that have tried medication with negative side effects, or they don't want to do medication, and they know there's other options. And then they will particularly seek us out.
And so let's say they come for that first visit. I imagine it's not just not the typical first visit with a counselor or anything like that. If they've ever been to one, what does that first visit look like for you?
So for working with me, because we do have regular counselors on the team, with working with me, we're doing a full functional history. I'm taking family health history going back to great-grandparents and out to cousins, nieces, and nephews.
Okay.
We're looking at diet. We're looking at sleep patterns. We're looking at the birth history, because there are red flags that pop up during pregnancy and delivery, as well as right after birth.
It's a trauma, yeah.
But I'm also looking for things like, was there a tongue tie? Did they use an epidural? Was it somebody that needed fertility treatment? Because all of these things indicate that it's very possible that we have a genetic influence that's already been turned on to cause these symptoms. So it's a very thorough intake. We're talking about how many times are you having bowel movements per day? Are you waking up in the middle of the night? All of the things. Sometimes I am actually referring kids for hormone testing, because right now I get a lot of kids in my office. I've got 6-year-old girls that are having periods, and that is absurd.
Yep.
And then I've got 17-year-old boys that are exercising 3 or 4 hours a week, and they can't put on a single muscle. Well, then we've got a testosterone issue, and we need to figure out what's the root of that. So it's really person to person. The answers lead the next questions. So it's very individualized as far as what that appointment looks like.
You know, you've dealt, I'm sure, with hundreds of clients. What's the biggest resistance that sometimes parents have with their kids? And I know obviously changing diet is hard and all that, but what's the big internal resistance that you see?
So most of it is the messages that we've been sent for so many years about what healthcare actually is.
Like the food pyramid?
Well, so we've got the food pyramid. That has been a mixed message. But then we've also got that the only way to treat things is through medicine.
Yeah.
And that just isn't the case. You know, I hear people that will argue with me, well, our ancestors used to die at 35. Yeah, but according to the Bible, some of our ancestors died at 900. So, you know, we've got a choice here. Do we want to be the people who can live to 120 or 180 by making those healthier decisions, or do we want to continue following the medical model? Because right now in the United States, instead of us getting older, we're actually dying younger. And that's something that they're not talking about.
And dying with more chronic disease than we ever
Absolutely.
have before. So we're extending how long we're alive, but at what cost?
Right. And we've got kids with the worst chronic illness rates that we have ever seen.
Yeah. And I mean, we can tie back my good friend, and I don't know if you've met them or not, Patrick and Ashley from Jigsaw Health. They just released a movie called Breaking Big Food.
Okay.
If you haven't seen it, it's definitely
Sounds like it should be on my list.
It should be on your list. And, you know, the importance of them wanting to focus in on, you know, local supported foods and the farmers and where we're getting stuff. And I won't fill the whole story. But let's talk about that role that food has, because it's, especially in, you know, our society, we are very, very, like, most people don't pay attention to the little things. They just will grab whatever they have. And it's like, you know, when I tell people I usually don't like to eat out because I don't know what ingredients might have. I shared this one example. I was having dinner with Dr. Matt late at night after a speaking event, 9 o'clock at night, and I ended up at a restaurant downtown Austin, very well known. I'm not going to name them out. But it was late, so I didn't want to eat heavy because I usually don't, but I wanted to join the other people who were there. Sure. And I had a cabbage salad. With tofu. It's about as light as you can get. And I happened to be wearing a CGM that day, a continuous glucose monitor. And my glucose the whole day was hovering around 80. Like, I was perfectly normal.
Yeah.
It shot me into the 160s in minutes.
Wow.
Minutes. I don't know what was in that dressing.
Yeah.
But I immediately felt the brain fog. I had to drive home at night, and like, I used to hate driving home at night. When I cleaned up my diet, when I cleaned up, I reversed a bunion I had. I reversed a brain fog. All my energy level, like my clarity, everything changed. Right. All of a sudden, that one meal, and I felt that difference because we reset to a new normal, And my new normal was healthy, not, ooh, this is awful.
Yeah.
Why do people get stuck in not being able to make those changes?
Well, one, convenience, right?
Okay.
Americans, we are way too busy. We, with our kids, we've got them in 11 extracurricular activities. There's no time for you to sit down and cook. But both parents are also working just to be able to pay the bills. So it's easier to grab something that we can just toss in the oven or drive through for it, right? In between work and then getting to all the extracurricular activities. So that's the biggest part of it, is convenience. But also, we've gotten to a point in time where the bad food costs less.
Yeah.
And, I have weeks sometimes where I go to the grocery store and I'm like, what just happened? I just basically got raped going to the grocery store. I just spent $500 and I don't have that much in my cart.
Yeah.
So that's a big part of it. We hear that frequently from parents that we're working with. Eating that way costs a lot of money. So we really have to teach them there are better ways for us to shop. There are better choices that we can make. And then we can also do batch cooking. One of my favorite things to do on a Sunday is to cook 5 or 10 pounds of beef and then parse it out into our glass containers with different seasonings on it so that I'm not eating the same thing every day, even though I am eating the same thing every day.
I hear you. Yeah, I'll do the same thing, mix and match and cook a whole bunch of veggies and just have it for the week, because I know that if I don't plan it ahead of time, that my life will make me make bad choices because I'm busy, and busy does not give me an excuse to treat my body poorly because I don't want the consequences of it later on. You also recently authored a book. Let's talk a little bit about that. What's the title and kind of what did you cover in that book?
So the book that just came out is called The Basics of Functional Mental Health. And this really is just the basics. It is to open the door and help people to start going, wait a minute, I never thought about that before. And nobody's talked to me about that before.
Is that aimed more towards the parents or other mental health practitioners?
It's both.
Okay.
We really want to start changing the paradigm inside of the mental health space, because right now, again, it's push the pills. But we already know that the pill model has been disproven. We know that SSRIs do not work the way that they think that they do. ADHD medication has so many side effects and is damaging to the organs and the brains long term. So we really want to start focusing on those root causes. What are the genes? What are the toxins? What is affecting me through my diet? So it's just starting the conversation. Our second book is actually going to be released next week.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you.
It'll be released by the time this is out, but that's awesome.
And it's called the Perimenopause Prescription, a holistic perspective on menopause.
Yeah.
Because again, the root of menopause starts with a toxic burden. Like I said, we've got kids in our office that are having cycles really, really young, but I've got women coming into my practice who have signs of perimenopause at the age of 30.
Yeah.
I have never seen this in my entire career, but that's where all of their mental health symptoms are coming from. So it's one of the big things that we're focusing on right now. But the follow-up books are actually going to expand on the different pillars inside of my book and going into genetics and going into hormones and sleep and each of the different things so we can really deep dive. But this was just to get people start thinking a little different.
Yeah, you touched on the sleep part. And for me, that was one of the big things. Like I've always been an early waker, and my sleep wasn't up to where it should have been. And so one of the first things I did is I got a smart ring to track it. They don't have to spend a fortune on the Auras. You can get them for literally as little as $12 in places. But just being able to track that sleep has made such a huge difference in the quality of my health and the quality of my thinking. How do you help parents deal with their children and helping them get more sleep and focus on quality sleep?
So one of the first things we talk about is sleep routine, and then also blue light. Making sure that we're cutting back on the amount of time our kids are spending on devices, especially after school when they've been on a device all day long. So making sure that we're getting our kids outside, making sure that they're moving. If they do have to be on a device in order to do homework, putting blue blocker filters, and making sure that we're turning
or at least the glasses.
Yeah. Or making sure that we're turning off electronics. Some parents, it's only an hour before bed. That's great. But if we can do 3 hours before bed, it's it's so much easier for us to fall asleep. You know, we're also talking about making sure that within the first 30 minutes of waking, we're going outside. You know, even in the wintertime, going outside and making sure that we're getting sunlight to the cone of the eye, make sure that our brain knows to create melatonin at the right time.
Yeah, and you know, we both came from the Northeast, so you were in Connecticut. I was originally from New York. It's a lot harder to make excuses not getting out when it's 300 days of sunshine here in Round Rock. Like, just is what it is.
But there's actually lights that you can buy. And, you know, they're advertised for people with dementia and sundowning. But they're perfect to have in the Northeast because they make sure that you get that sunlight exposure from a bulb, even in those winter months.
What do you find to be the biggest obstacle that you have in terms of, you know, getting buy-in from the general public about mental health, that you just wish they'd get over it already?
So I think the biggest part is really understanding what an impact food has on your mental and physical health.
So food is your number one driver.
Yep. I absolutely think right now it all starts with your food, because, you know, as much as we say that this is our brain, it's not our first brain. Our gut is our first brain. And if we're not feeding that right, then we're impacting the whole rest of our body. And one of the things they don't talk about is the fact that most of your neurotransmitters actually start in your intestines.
Yeah.
So if we want to feel happy and we want to not have anxiety, well, we got to feed our belly right so that it's feeding our brain correctly.
I'm sure, you know, and I've heard you talk about, you know, you work with kids. I'm curious how young you start working with them, and you're working with women as well. What's the populations that you work with?
So for counseling one-on-one, I only work with kids 3 to 12. That's the age group that I love. We're doing cognitive behavioral therapy.
Yep.
But when it comes to...
That was my old thing many careers ago, yes.
When it comes to functional, I will work with families with children as young as 3, and my oldest client was 76 with Parkinson's.
Okay. You know, all the topics that we've covered, there's a wide range because you are looking at this bigger functional piece.
Yeah.
I'm sure parents probably have a lot of different questions. What's the most common question that you hear from them?
So the number one question is always, how do I keep my kid off of meds? You know, they're getting pressured by the school in order to put them on medication so that they'll sit still. So that initial conversation is always around, we've got to go after the food. So that's the first thing.
We're a society that tends to want immediate results. So, you know, school contacts the parent, tell them they've got to get them on medication and they're not going to be welcome back, whatever the story is. They find you somehow. Hopefully they listen to the podcast now and they find you as well. Yep. What's that timeline from, you know, the school? You're saying, okay, we have a plan for you and now they'll be better in school. What does that look like in terms of a timeline generally?
So it's really person to person and what is our toxic burden. I have seen kids be able to reverse many of their behaviors by just removing one thing from their diet.
Okay.
One case that I had, it was a 7-year-old boy, and there was bouts of aggressive behavior. So we kept a food mood diary, and I sat down with the food mood diary, and it was the orange juice the kid was drinking.
Just pumping that sugar first thing in the morning.
It wasn't even just the sugar, though.
Yeah.
It was the brand of orange juice that they were using had folic acid in it.
Okay.
And this kiddo had been born with a tongue tie, so we know automatically we've got an MTHFR genetic mutation. We can't methylate, and synthetic folic acid is a neurotoxin. So we remove the orange juice, go with a fully organic orange juice, all the aggressive behavior is gone.
And that happened, what, in a couple days?
It was within the first week.
Yeah.
So it's person to person and what is the food trigger. If we're somebody who has a really intensive toxic burden, it can be 90 days. But we go into that knowing what the expectation is.
And do you work also with the schools so that they're informed or that, you know, there is a course of action that's being taken?
So most of the time what the schools are wanting is to know that they're actually working with someone.
Okay, that's
so we can provide a letter indicating they have come to our office, they will be working with us. This is how many appointments per week they're going to have, and we'll provide school notes if they need to miss school for those appointments.
We tend to have a lot of listeners who are also entrepreneurs and very busy.
Yep.
If you had to give them one piece of advice for their mental wellness today, what would it be?
So I would also start with making sure you get outside in the morning.
Okay.
As somebody who is also a business owner, I work 6 days a week. My days are 12 hours. I make sure that I get outside in the morning and I get in physical activity every single day. The old phrase is if you're anxious or you're depressed, you should get outside for 30 minutes a day. Mm-hmm. But if you're really busy, you should get outside for an hour. So I want everybody to make sure you're getting outside, move your body, and then feed your body the right way. Because what we're putting into our body as entrepreneurs really does impact our business.
Absolutely. If people have more questions for you, they want to reach out to you, what's the best way to find you?
So we're on all of the platforms. We do have a podcast. So, we're on YouTube, we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on
And the name of that podcast?
LinkedIn. The podcast is called Reinventing Mental Health. You'll find us as Infinite Potential on most of the other platforms. Sometimes it says Infinite Potential / Reinventing Mental Health.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.